Hey, Kyle here with winthehouseyoulove.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how gifts work for a down payment and closing costs to buy a home. So for a lot of people, saving for a down payment and closing costs is really difficult. As homes continue to increase in cost, so does the down payment as well. And so there are a good amount of people who then rely on their family, sometimes outside of family, to help them with the down payment and closing costs with a gift. And the way a gift works is it's someone gives money to somebody purchasing a home without expectation that that is going to be repaid. So it's a gift, it's not a loan. So what I want to do is I want to help you see all the requirements here, because gifts can be actually really frustrating in the mortgage process. There's going to be a lot going on when you look to buy a house. And if you're looking at using a gift, people just start moving money around and it creates so much frustration for people. And so I want to guide you through the best way to do this. That way you have as little frustration as possible when you are choosing to use a gift. So this is a high level overview of how this works. So we first have a gift letter, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about the gift letter here in the next slide. But what a gift letter does is it basically says somebody is willing to give you money to buy a home for the down payment, closing cost, either or, and they don't expect to be repaid, okay? And this is something that the lender is going to give to you. From there, what then ends up happening is there's going to be a transfer of money from the donor to the person buying the home, or there's several different ways this can actually happen. And this is where it gets messed up. You need to do this the right way. People often just want to start moving money around, and it creates so much stress. Because there's a lot more documentation that can be required, and it just adds in extra kind of hurdles to the process that you don't really want to have to deal with. So I'm going to show you the right way to do this. So we go from a gift, transfer of funds happens, and then that is money that you can use as a down payment, closing costs that you aren't paying back. Okay, so gift letter, all this is usually just a one-page document that you're going to get from your loan officer. So you don't have to make this on your own. You're going to get this from your loan officer. This is what it needs to have on it. It's going to have the name of the donor, so who's giving you the money, their address, their phone number, their relationship to you, and I'll show you who is eligible as a donor and who is not. Also the gift amount that they're giving you. Most of the time, the gift amount tends to be whatever the minimum down payment is. So for conventional loans, 3% for first-time home buyers. FHA loans is 3.5%. VA and USDA don't require a down payment, but sometimes closing costs are gifted in there as well. So usually I see it around the minimum down payment. However, you really can gift with most loan programs any amount that you'd like. It also has to say that there is no expectation of repayment. And then most of the time you need to also show in the date of the transfer of that money as well. So let's first talk about conventional loans. I'm going to walk you through conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA, all those different loan types and their requirements here, so you don't run into any frustrations when you do get a gift with these loans. So first of all, who is an eligible donor? So who can actually give you money? This can trip up a lot of people because it's not just anyone, right? It can't just be a friend. It can't just be somebody who said, hey, I'll give you some money. That doesn't really work. And also, if you have any more of those friends, let me know. I'd love to talk with them. So eligible donors, it can be a borrower's spouse, child, or another dependent, or any individual who is related to the borrower by blood, marriage, adoption, or legal guardianship, fiance. Did you say in the same way? Fiance, the same thing, domestic partner. And it cannot be or have any affiliation with an interested party in the transaction. Basically what that means is it can't be the seller, can't be the real estate agent. They cannot give you a gift to buy your home. Okay. Also, this does have to be on a primary residence or secondary residence. So you cannot get a gift on an investment property. And if you're buying a home that is 2 to 4 units, that's a primary residence, you need at least 5% down of your own, and then you can get a gift on top of that. Or if it's a secondary home, that's less than 20% down. I don't know, it says greater. If it's a secondary home that's less than 20% down, you also need to put 5% of your own money down. So for most people, that's a very unique situation that's probably not going to matter that much. So for documentation, there's 4 different kinds of documentation. So it can be one of the following, and you know what's really fun is there's an ant crawling on the slide over here, and it is annoying me, and I know it's going to disappear by the end of this video, and I'm going to freak out. Okay. Anyway, so documentation can either be a copy of the donor's check and borrower's deposit slip, copy of the donor's withdrawal slip and borrower's deposit slip, copy of the donor's check to the closing agent, or a settlement statement showing receipt of the donor's check. So there's a lot of documentation in here. And the reason why this bottom one is in green is this is the best option with the least amount of friction. What we don't want to do, when you're getting a loan, you want to give the underwriter the minimum amount of documents possible, because documents that they see, they get to ask questions about. And we just don't want extra questions and sending in extra documents that can and require additional documents on top of it. We don't want that. We want to send in the minimum amount possible. And this is the best solution here. So what happens a lot of times is people make the mistake of they have the donor sends them a check. They're like, oh yeah, I already sent them a check and I deposited it. Okay, well now that has to be documented as one of these options. The easiest solution is to have whoever's giving you money, have them send it directly to the settlement agent. So, around here, that's our title agent. So send it directly to the title agency and they can provide a receipt that that money was received. And then you don't need anything from your statement side. They don't need anything from the donor's statement. It just makes it a lot easier than having to send in bank statements multiple times to show the money you had and now the new gift, and it gets a little complex and people start getting frustrated. And so just have the donor send it directly to the title company. Okay, it's going to work out the same way whether it hit your bank account or it's just applied as a credit towards your cash to close. So you still get the gift both ways. Gift of equity is allowed, and that is where someone would, instead of giving you like a check for money or sending that to a title company, they're gifting you a portion of the equity they already have in the home and basically transferring that over to you. For Freddie Mac, same thing. It's a conventional loan. It's just a different brand of conventional loan. Might be a good way to think about it. You have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Talk to your loan officer about which one you're using. It's going to be the same thing as Fannie Mae. The only really interesting difference here is that it does allow wedding gifts. Fannie Mae and all the other loans don't talk about wedding gifts, except Freddie Mac actually mentions it in their guidelines, and they don't limit who the eligible donors are, right? And the other side, I talked about who could be an eligible donor, but with Freddie Mac, if it's a wedding gift, it can be anybody. So what it requires is a copy of a marriage license and verification of the gift fund deposit within 60 days of the date of marriage. If it's beyond 60 days, at that point, those funds have seasoned in, which I've talked about in my down payments video. And it's not gonna be treated as a gift anymore. That's just gonna be your own funds. But if it's within that 60 days, it's a gift and you need those two things. Okay, FHA, eligible donors. FHA is a lot more strict on the gift requirement side. So they can say a family member. I'll just run through this list really quickly. Child, foster child, parent, grandparent, spouse or domestic partner, legally adopted son or daughter, brother, sister, stepbrother, stepsister, uncle, aunt, son, daughter, father, mother, brother, or sister-in-law, employer or labor union, close friend with clearly defined interest in the borrower. This one is really tricky. I've only heard stories of people being able to make this work. I've never actually seen it in person. Usually, the only time I've seen this work tends to be when it's a couple who is engaged. And there are close friend, and the clearly defined interest is the fact that they got engaged. I've heard stories of people saying, yeah, a friend gave money and they printed out their Facebook news feed of how much they poked each other and whatever you do on Facebook. I don't know if that's really flies anymore. This is one of those kind of gray areas for underwriters that they usually aren't okay with just signing off on because it's so vague. And then other one is charitable organization or government entity. This would be like if you're getting down payment assistance, would be through something like that. Okay, FHA, primary residence only. FHA loans are for primary residences only anyway. Cash on hand is not allowed. A donor cannot take cash and just hand it to you. That's not an acceptable source. Documentation. Okay, so again, we have three different options here. The green one is the best. The first is if it's already in your account, if they gave you money and it's in your account already, you need the donor's bank statement showing withdrawal and evidence of deposit into your account. This is the big thing with the FHA that trips up a lot of people, is that if you're getting a gift from somebody, you should expect that the underwriter is going to ask for 30 days worth of bank statements from the donor. It's really frustrating. I'll explain a little bit more of that in detail. The amount of times I've had people yell at me because of this, is too many to count, but that's just the rule. I unfortunately can't change it. That's FHA's rule. They want to see the donor bank statement as well. Okay, so just that's a heads up. If you're using an FHA loan and getting a gift, you need to have that conversation with the person giving you the money. Hey, this is what's required on the loan. These are the guidelines. And then they can make that decision if they're comfortable giving you the money after that. But that's a conversation you need to have with your donor. If it's not in your account, they need a certified check, money order, cashier's check, or a transfer showing the withdrawal. And then also we can do the solution that I like the best, which is paid directly to the settlement agent. And then the loan officer can actually reach out to the settlement agent and get receipt showing that they actually have that. Even if it's paid directly to the settlement agent, you still should expect that the underwriter will request the donor's bank statements. Gift of equity is allowed, but the only eligible donor is a family member. So FHA does have this small little blurb in their guidelines that says, regardless of when the gift funds are made available to a borrower, the lender must make a reasonable determination that the gift funds were not provided by an unacceptable source, like a real estate agent or someone like that. This usually requires a copy of the donor's bank statement. Okay, so just know that when you go into an FHA loan looking at a gift, you likely are going to need a bank statement from the donor. And keep in mind too, like it's not like so if you're getting a gift from, let's say, a parent, they don't have to, your parent doesn't have to send you their bank statement and then you send it to your loan officer. They can send it directly to the loan officer. Like I've done that plenty of times. So nobody sees each other's bank statements. Nobody sees what's going on, but the underwriter has to verify that it didn't come from the seller or the realtor or whatever. USDA, I should say, this is probably a good time to mention, which I don't do a good job of self-promotion. If you're looking for a loan officer who can help you, who has a Harvard teacher who can walk through guidelines like this with you, I have a link in the description. Same thing if you're looking to connect with a real estate agent, and have several other tools in there that can help you compare different loan quotes, find what your maximum purchase price is, look at your affordability. All that is in the description if you'd like to do that. Shameless self-promotion. Over USDA loans, eligible donors. This is a little bit different on USDA and VA because they don't have this long list of, well, I guess it wasn't long. They don't have this list of has to be family member. It's really anyone that doesn't have an interest in the sale of the property. The seller, the builder, real estate agent. Okay. So as long as it's not those people, it can be a friend. It can be any random person who decides to give you money. It doesn't require the donor to have familial ties to the borrower. Gifts cannot be used as reserves. It's just a little side note in there. On other loans, you can use a gift as a reserve. Sometimes loans like FHA might say you need 3 months of reserves. That's the money left over in your bank account after you pay for your down payment and closing costs. But on USDA, it cannot be reserves. Cash on hand is also not acceptable in there as well. Okay, VA. Eligible donors, same thing as USDA, anyone that doesn't have an interest in the sale of the property. And then for documentation, it's a lot more lax. It is just evidence of the borrower's deposit or a copy of the donor's funds by check, electronic transfer to closing agent, or the CD showing receipt of donor funds. And so the way that both of USDA and VA work are going to be very similar. And that it's going to be the best to just transfer it directly to the title agent. Okay. Gift of equity is not in the guidelines, but it's likely similar to USDA. Okay. And so with USDA, the way that gift of equity works is that since USDA and VA are both 0% down, normally you're not really needing a down payment. And so it doesn't really make sense to have a gift of equity. Instead, it's a reduction in the purchase price. Okay, and one rare trick that probably is not going to be used by a lot of people. I've only run into this a couple times, but if you have somebody who is willing to give you a 100% gift, okay, hear me out on this. This is a very rare situation, so I call it rare trick. I've run into a situation where a parent wanted to give a son cash to buy the home, but then the son was going to pay the money back and get a mortgage for it. So the son got the advantage of having a cash offer, but being able to take long-term financing. Now, normally people do this on their, well, when people have the cash, they can do this on their own using a method called delayed financing. But when someone else does it for you, this is the trick to make it work if you're in this very rare and unique situation. The way that this happens is someone can pay cash for the home, okay? It can be in your name, but then what they need to do is actually write a small little note, they can look up note template online. They need to give you a loan that has a payback period, an interest rate, and all of that. And then what ends up happening is you can actually do a rate and term refinance to pay them back. And then you now have a long-term loan, but you were able to do a cash offer upfront. So very rare trick. Not a lot of people are in that situation, but I don't think a lot of people know that solution does exist if you are in there. So here is the best plan. All right. Boiling all this down, look into your unique loan that you're using and the requirements. The first thing is a gift letter is going to be written. And then don't move money around. Please don't move money around. It just makes it so much more complicated. And then you get kind of defined into what you're able to do. So the gift letter is going to be written. You're going to get this from your lender. Ask your lender for the gift letter. You're going to fill it out with your donor, and then have the donor directly transfer the money to the settlement agent. Talk to your lender about who exactly do I need to send that money, or who does the donor need to send that money to. If you're using an FHA loan, expect that they will request the donor's bank statements, even if you do that. This is the easiest solution here. Okay. I hope this was helpful. If you are looking to talk with a loan officer who has the heart of a teacher, who makes videos just like I do, link is in the description. Same thing with a real estate agent. If you're looking for one in your city who can help you, or maybe you're just wanting to interview a couple different agents, I have a link in the description for that, along with a ton of other tools. Thank you for watching.